Today I'm going to talk about the cadenza in the first movement of Beethoven's Piano Concerto No. 1. It is, of all the cadenzas, the longest, it's the most brilliant one, and therefore the task for the performer is, what do we do with all these arpeggios and scales and chromatic scales and melodies and so forth? How do we make this meaningful? Let's talk about what's happening in the cadenza. It starts out with the piano imitating the orchestra. So obviously, remember the theme. So this octave becomes a very, very important feature in the whole movement. And so again, Beethoven uses that to write with imitative style in the cadenza opening. What I just played was about 2 pages of the cadenza. So you can hear there is a lot of brilliant virtuosic display, pianistic firework. And of course, not every measure is the same speed, the same intensity. It has to vary. And so we have to look at how do we shape this. For example, if you have this, if I play it a little slower, it can sound very easily like some exercise or some pianistic study by Kulak or Czerny. And so we have to look at possibilities how to make this interesting, how to play, for example, 4 measures of 16th notes with interpretation. There is a movement going on, and that means you start smaller, build towards that tonality, towards that diminished chord. And now he wants to show off. And he arrives at a new tonality. So, of course, this is basically laying out a chord. And he uses the whole keyboard for that. So he generates all this sound with a lot of notes instead of playing just chords. And then he does the same again, starting with and so forth. He does the same kind of structure again. So that fills already 2 pages. Now where I stopped, we come to a different place. So what happens here? It doesn't say in the score to slow down, but I do this because I feel like I have to prepare this minor melody. So I slow it down. And therefore, because I vary the speed, it sounds like I make this up on the spot, because I don't really know what's coming up. Of course I do, but it never should sound rehearsed. And there's the surprise of going to this. A tonality, E minor, that he never used in the piece, actually. So he, of course, uses the opening of the motive, but and the interesting part for me is that there is also something in the left hand. It's like a secondary melody. So you hear the outsides would sound like this. And so forth. But the commotion is there because you have all the sixteenths in between. For me, there is a feeling of urgency and drama. There is a kind of unsettling motion, and that's why I make a crescendo, and that's why I also speed it up a little bit. That could go on, but no, what happens is he comes to major. So out of this serious urgency, out of the blue, we get to a very sunny, a very happy place. And therefore I change the dynamic here. This is not in the score. The score doesn't say how to play all this, but this is how I feel about this place. So that the improvisation or the cadenza as such stays always interesting. Because let's face it, you don't want to hear too much of this. If that keeps on going, it becomes rather redundant. And so by changing and realizing, well, the harmony changes, it changes from minor to diminished chords, and it goes here and it wanders there, and there is some kind of a momentum going, and then all of a sudden there is sunlight. Notice how he changes from major to minor. I always feel like if you play the same thing, first in major and then in minor, it is similar to experience a sunny day and a rainy or cloudy day. So that's why I interpret the minor as being the pianissimo, the more dolce or the mysterious kind of place, while the opening, before the earlier part, this is the open singing, very lyrical, but in the front part, while the minor part is it adds some kind of a drama, something we don't know where this goes. Now what? here again we have sort of a waiting place. Question mark. What do I do with all this? Let's speed it up. Not quite a trill. So now I found something. I'm talking like somebody who makes this up on the spot. We heard this before. We heard this earlier in the movement. So it comes, it derives from the last part of the exposition, and of course in the recapitulation as well. So he, again, he uses that. It's a little bit angry and so forth. I believe that the left hand is more important than those chords. And there is in Broadway musical, there is a famous song. It's called "What I Can Do, You Can Do Better," or "What You Do, I Can Do Better," actually. And so think about the two hands as conversing or fighting or arguing about something. It would be like, I can do this, I can do this too. So if you hear this like a competition between the two hands, how they fight for attention. Towards the end they join. Now we arrive at something that is really bombastic and for today's pianos quite dangerous. Keep in mind that Beethoven's pianos seemed to fail because pianos were not as strong as they are today, they are not as large, they're not as powerful. And so Beethoven was known to destroy many instruments during his lifetime. And so this is a place where it seems like Beethoven is very angry. And so on. He develops this huge sound just by going over the whole keyboard, and he marks specifically in the score to keep the pedal going. So you build up this volume just by adding sounds to each other. On today's instruments, I think you cannot really do that faithfully. That's one of the places where one has to interpret even Beethoven's wishes. And I believe we have a better chance to realize what this is about. And the character and the outline of a kind of a melody gets lost if one plays all this with pedal. I show you. Get this huge sound. I would call this some kind of a spaghetti sauce where everything blends together and you lose the structure. And therefore I suggest for those places to be more careful and change the pedal and still play fortissimo and with all this drive, obviously, but be careful that one doesn't overplay the instrument. So after all this rage, we come to a place where he quiets down. this sounds to me like Mozart was just overlooking his writing desk. Very funny sounding, very happy sounding, and with the trill and the transition of the trill, I sort of lead into that character. So we have in the trills, by the way, again the octave gap. So this is almost like a mini cadenza within the cadenza. And it's not marked with any rhythm, so the performer can do whatever they feel like it. It would be the worst to play, because that kills the whole place. So what do we do here now? Obviously, the competition of the right and the left hand, who can play this better? You know, it couldn't be any more obvious what to do with that. It's very, very funny. If music can be funny, yes, that would be the place to do. And we come to another chromatic scale here. Interestingly enough, you know, you have the right hand doing all this chromatic scale. It's like pausing for the left hand. Now they both arrive at the double trill. And where does this come from? It comes from, it's just the little snippet of the opening. It sounds to me like bells. G, 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 F, F, F. And here arrives at a triple trill, T, 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 triple trill. At that place, you would normally come to the conclusion of the cadenza, and you have a trill, and you come to the end of the cadenza, and the orchestra will join you for the last tutti and so forth. But no, being Beethoven, he wants to do it differently. He's a young man, he wants to prove to the world, I can do more than that. So at the trill, which sounds to me like some kind of like a shimmer or a glitter, he goes on. So that will conclude the cadenza. Again, we have. Can you do this? Yes, I can. Can you do that? Yes, I can. And then they join, and I believe one should speed this up. It's like the commotion gets catapulted towards the last chord. Surprise is this chord, which is inserted, because he could have ended like this, which would be maybe the more logical or the more obvious ending. But this ending, not yet. Now.